Hello everyone, welcome to Canteen Cup. My name is Scott, and today I want to spend a couple minutes talking about chainsaws. Chainsaws are very important on the homestead. They're used for a lot of things, and while they are also very useful, they can also be rather dangerous. And so you're responsible for your own safety. Use your chainsaws wisely. I am not advocating one way or another to use a chainsaw. Today, I'm really just talking about types of chainsaws, what I have on my homestead, why I have them, and what I use them for. So, how many chainsaws do I have? Well, I actually have four, and each one has a slightly different use. I use them for different things, and I use them all. So that being said, let's talk about chainsaws, and I'll probably go from smallest to largest. So I'm gonna switch the camera around, and we can get started. All right, this is my first chainsaw. It's a still. It's on a long pole. Okay, I forget how long that pole is, but it's pretty long. And probably you can all guess what we use it for. We use it for trimming around our property to get some of the lower hanging branches down. Here's the motor end of it, and then we have a strap. We like it. We use it a lot. Well, I have still saws. The one thing I don't like about still is that if you need to buy spare parts for a still saw and buy the still brand, you have to go to a dealer. They don't have an online service, so I don't like that I have to travel. But in general, it's a good saw. We like it. The chain on this, I think this is a 12-inch bar, and it's also the smallest chain that we use. The smallest chain blade we use is on this one. All right, so moving along, this is our newest addition over here. You kind of saw it before. This is called a top handle saw. It's made by Echo. I happen to like Echo. It's a good brand, been around for years and years, and I have a dealer about 3 miles away. So if I need a service, I can easily get parts for this. This is called a top handle saw because it's got the handle on top, and a lot of people call this an arborist saw. People that climb trees and limb trees. Here is a loop here. What you do is you attach a rope to this, and then you attach it to your climbing belt while you're climbing the tree with the saw off. And then when you get to where you need to use it, you pull it up, start it, do your cutting, turn it off, and then you can hang it back down. I don't do that, but however, it's a very handy saw when you're doing some basic clearing activities and you don't need a full-size saw. This is a great saw, and one of my brothers-in-laws, or my sons-in-laws, I guess you call them, is my oldest son's wife's brother, and I always get confused with all that stuff. Anyhow, he's the one that really started. He owns a farm and he raises goats, and he told me about the utility of this saw, so I went and got one and I like it. Now, the caveat with this saw is it's for its size, it's a pretty powerful saw. I think it's got a 35 cc motor, which is a pretty big motor for this little saw. And because it's so handy, it is inherently dangerous. I let my wife use this saw, and when she uses it, I make sure she uses two hands because, like I said, because it's so handy, it's very easy to hurt yourself. So if you're contemplating getting a saw like this for yourself, be careful. All right, this is a professional saw designed for professional use, but I like it. And mind you, I've been using chainsaws for over 40 years. When I got my first chainsaw, we didn't have things like this. The brake, the anti-kickback brake. We didn't have anti-kickback chains. We just had a basic saw. So I've been doing it for a while, and I still have all my digits, thank goodness. Knock on wood. All right, so again, a very good saw, very easy to use. Has a smallish gas tank, so it's not designed for all day cutting, so to speak, but for clearing, and I have a lot of clearing I've got to do this while, and for little limbing operations, it's a great saw. All right, moving up from there, my next saw, let me see if I can find a spot for this. All right, let me put this up here. This is my, I'm gonna say, oh, and by the way, the saw blade on this one is bigger than the one on the trimmer, but smaller than this one. All right, this is the Stihl MS251. It's called the Farm Boss. It's a good saw. I think it's 45 cc's. It's got an 18-inch bar on it, and if you notice, I have a different bar. And what had happened, I was doing some rather heavy-duty cutting, and I was cutting some down timber, and what happened was the bar got pinched in there, and then because the saw really wasn't powerful enough to power through it, it actually pinched the bar, and I had to replace the bar. And like I said, I had to tighten this chain too. But I had to replace the bar. Now, I was doing some really heavy lumbering, and I still have some more to do. But for most people, I say most people with average skill sets, with average need for a chainsaw, this will probably do everything you need it to do. It'll cut some decent sized lumber. Again, this chain is bigger than this chain, which is bigger than that chain. But for what I was doing, it did not have quite as much oomph as I really felt I needed for a chain. But again, for most people, if you're gonna buy one chainsaw, one about this size, I think this is a 45 cc motor. For most people, it's got all the horsepower you need, and it's probably a good compromise between cutting ability, weight, and power. So if you don't have a chainsaw and you need to get one, somewhere around the Stihl MS251. When I bought this, I was living in another place where a Stihl dealer was closer, and it wasn't until later that I discovered that you can only get Stihl parts from a Stihl dealer. You can't get them online or anything. So a little bit of a hassle, but it's still a good product. And just so you know, I normally keep the guards on the chainsaw blades, but I wanted to show you the chains without the guards. And then my last saw is a professional chainsaw, and you can see the difference between the two chains. All right, let me pull this back out. All right, this is a big saw. Okay, most people who do not lumber for a living, do not cut timber for a living, will not have a saw this size. This is about 68 cubic inches. It is a professional grade saw. It's got a large chain, and it is very powerful. like I said, there were times when my smaller saw, my still, just wasn't getting it, and so we went and got this bigger saw, and I really like it. I mean, it helped me. Places where my smaller saw would bog down, this would just chew right through it. So with the type of work I was doing and probably will do over the next couple of years, there are times for this saw. Now the caveat to this saw is, yes, it is big, it is powerful, it is also heavy. And so swinging this around all day may not be for everybody. And again, for most people who are running a homestead, running a farm, you probably do not need this saw. When I bought this property, I was starting with vacant land, and so I have a lot more, maybe not as much now, but I had more opportunities to cut bigger stuff, which is why I got this saw. So these are my saws. I use them all. Again, probably the majority of the time, I'm using my Stihl Farm Boss. And I do know how to sharpen the blades, and so I have files. I have to have 4 separate files because each one of these chains is a different size, requires a different file, and I keep them sharp. That's very important. Keep them sharp. Okay. Well, while we're here, we can take a quick look at my fuel reserves, and I keep them, you know, kind of stacked nice. I just built this shelf this year to make things easier, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit. And the blue over in the corner is for kerosene. I keep 5 gallons of kerosene because I have a kerosene heater for just in case. I try to keep somewhere around 15 gallons of diesel, and then the rest of these are gas, and they're not all filled, but I think most of them are filled at this time. If you notice, I have different sizes, and I do that for a reason, and it's really convenience more than anything else. For general fuel storage, I keep the fuel in the 5 gallon containers. For filling things like lawnmowers or my tiller, like that, I use a 2.5 gallon gas tank, just because it's easier to manhandle and I don't spill it when it's like that. So I go from a 5 to a 2.5, and then if you see here, I actually have a couple, but I use this one the most. This is a 1.25 gallon, and this is where my 2-stroke fuel mix is. I only put 2-stroke fuel mix in the smaller containers, and that way I don't make a mistake of either putting non-mixed gas in my chainsaws or I put mixed gas in my lawnmowers and tillers and such. Also too, you see over here I use Sta-Bil. I put Sta-Bil in all the gas, and I also have stuff for my diesel in my other shed to make sure that stays treated. One other note I want to make, and that is all the gas in these gas cans, the gasoline cans, is non-ethanol gas. I strongly recommend that, even though it costs a little more money for all your farm equipment, and typically not cars and trucks, but your chainsaws, your lawnmowers, your tractors, your tillers, anything that uses gasoline on the farm, I recommend using non-ethanol gas. And the reason being is it stores better and your machines run better, and they don't, for some reason, the ethanol gas does not seem to gum up the carburetors as bad or as quickly as alcohol based or alcohol mixed gas. So for all your stuff like you see up here and here, use non-ethanol gas. We have a couple places around here, and that's all I put in these. Of course you can put it in your trucks, but it's a lot more expensive. And the way I feel about it is, because you use your trucks and cars more than you use this other stuff, it's, it's cycling through a lot a lot quicker, so I don't worry about it as much in my cars and trucks. So that's all I got. I really wanted to talk about this a little bit. Farm equipment um, is kind of a personal thing. I do like my Echo saws a lot. I really like that big one. But for me, it is a special use saw that when I'm cutting really big logs or really big timber or felling big trees, that's my go-to saw. But for most of what I do, that smaller steel farm boss will do the trick. The other caveat is I sharpen the chain on the Echo less than I sharpen the chain on the Still, and I think that's really a matter of size of the chain. Like I said, the chain on the Echo, the big Echo, is much larger than the chain on the Still. So that's all I have. I just wanted to kind of share this with you all. And so everybody stay safe and stay secure.